iPhone SE in 2020, how does it stand up? And how does it withstand the rigors of iOS 14? Let's discuss. This video is brought to you by Boyata. They've got this brand new laptop stand. They asked me if I would let you know about it. It's going to sound kind of funny, but I have been looking for a really good laptop stand for a while. This thing I was impressed with because it's got a flat base. It fits 11-inch to 17-inch laptops. And while it does a great job for holding laptops both on the desk and, sitting at your easy chair in the evening to do some work, it's even great for iPads. If you want to get the iPad up to the right sort of visual height. This thing's made 100% out of aluminum. What I love about it, and what I'm going to use it for in my own studio, is to hold up some of the music gear that's on my desk that there's no space on my desk to hold up anymore. It will actually take me pounding on the drum pads and everything else on my Ableton Push 2 without shaking or falling or, collapsing or anything like that. Check out the Amazon link in the description down below. Tell them that Painfully Honest Tech sent you. Till the next time. The design of the iPhone 4 through the iPhone 5S is still, in my opinion, and many others, I guess, one of the best looking pieces of industrial design out there. While the iPhone SE 2020 has been touted for its value, but some have been kind of upset for it not looking new or whatever they're upset about. I can't really recall anybody complaining about Apple bringing back the design of the iPhone 5S when they introduced the original iPhone SE. You can get an OG iPhone SE used for about $100 and change these days. I picked one up from Amazon Renewed, and I think it was about $125, maybe $135. And I've been using it on and off for the past month or so just to see how it holds up. And I even installed iOS 14 on here to try out the new widget features and all the new things that are in there. So, how does it hold up? Well, there is some good, there is some bad. So let's talk about it. First, we're going to go for the good. The design of the thing is still, I still love holding this thing. There's just something about the way it sits on the table or it sits in your hand. It's just incredibly satisfying. The flat screen, the chamfered edges, baby. The aluminum sides and back still feel solid in a way a lot of phones don't these days. The thing is tiny in comparison to just about anything on the market these days, but it still feels good in the hand. One-handed use is something to get used to. Again, I mean, you can reach all the way up to the other corner. It's refreshing after years of giant phones to be able to do that. Until you see it and feel it again, it's easy to forget how different smartphones are today, how different they were back even just like 4 or 5 years ago. The size means it's much easier to use, and I found that I didn't look at my phone as much during the day when I had this phone in my pocket. It felt more like a companion to my day instead of like a hub for my entire life, which was kind of refreshing. The initial vision for the iPhone was that Steve Jobs saw the entire Apple lineup as kind of a segmented ladder of use. There was the iPhone, there was the iPod, there was later the iPad, then you had the laptops, then you had the desktop computers, and everything in between. Now that sort of has just blurred a little bit. Things are bleeding into one another. The phones are almost as big as some iPads. The iPads are as fast as some computers. It's crazy town. The capabilities of smartphones to be everything someone would need is way more realistic than it was when this thing was brand new. Looking at the iPhone SE next to my LG V60, I think it's easy to see the marked difference between the two. There's something nice about not having a giant slab in my face all the time, so that was kind of a pleasant surprise. I wasn't sure how iOS 14 was going to work on this phone, and to be sure, it's not ideal. The new widgets and all that kind of stuff are really definitely designed for larger screens. Some of the widgets can take up almost an entire page on the iPhone SE, but the smaller widgets, like I have reminders here and some music here and that kind of thing, yeah, some of the smaller ones are useful and they break up the grid, which is nice. I really like having more contextual info for apps like Calendar, reminders, that kind of thing. Those are apps that are particularly annoying to have to dive into every time I want more information. I've also been toying around with music and podcasts and their various different widgets, and I I really like being able to do that. These are all things that I did on Android that now I can do on the iPhone, so yay! There was much rejoicing. I'm still, iOS, I mean, I've only had it for a couple of days. I'm still finding my way around, and I'm not yet used to a lot of this stuff, but I can say the app library feature is really good for the iPhone SE. It takes away the need for pages upon pages upon pages of icons, and it just organizes them in a way that the folders that we used back in the day just couldn't do. The thing I like is on the OG SE here, you can have like 2 pages of app icons, a couple of widgets, and the rest just put them over there in the app library. And it's a more elegant way of organizing the home screens, definitely more than previous versions of iOS. It's not an app drawer. It doesn't have the flexibility of Android. You can't leave whole sections of a page blank so that you can have like some negative space. That's not a thing that Apple wants you to do. And everything, when you move stuff around, everything still pulls to the top. So well, it can't be perfect. It works in its own particular way on the iPhone SE here. There are some downsides to using the OG SE in 2020. Most obviously is the age of the device itself. It was released in 2016 along with the iPhone 6 and 6S, and that kind of time in smartphone years is pretty big. I was concerned that the phone would be a little sluggish after the upgrade to iOS 14, but to my surprise, it has been really pretty snappy. I'm sure there's a difference in performance compared to like the newest iPhones, but in everyday use, as I've been going around just sort of fooling with it, it's run smoothly and didn't get bogged down with any kind of basic stuff or anything at all, really. I definitely didn't feel like I was fighting the phone to get through tasks because there wasn't enough power there. But still, we weren't even sure if iOS 14 was going to be supported on this phone. And while it's really cool that iOS 14 exists on this phone and the 6 and the 6S and the 6S Plus, this is almost certainly the last time we're going to see an OS upgrade for the iPhone SE. That doesn't mean you couldn't get a few years use out of it, but upgrades would end in a year or so, and then you just don't have the latest thing, which could be problematic for security reasons and other things. I was worried about battery life on the device. I was worried that there wouldn't be enough battery capacity left in the thing, but I was surprised when I discovered that it had 98% battery capacity left. That's like a lot for a 4 to 5 year old phone. Another arguably bigger problem comes in the storage department. The base SE, when it was released, came with 16 gigabytes of storage. That's a paltry amount my 32 version that I've got here has 24 gigabytes taken up with the operating system and just the very basic apps that I would use on a daily basis. I did not load this thing up at all. If you're going to look for this phone, get the 64 gigabyte or the 128 gigabyte storage. The 128 would be better because they didn't make those until a little bit later, so you'd be getting a newer phone potentially. Obviously, you couldn't run iOS 14, at least the base version, on a 16 gigabyte phone. That is just math. 32 gigabytes, it's almost a no-go. So if you're thinking about getting an original iPhone SE in 2020, be sure you get the right amount of storage for even being able to use it. So, is the original iPhone SE worth considering in 2020? It's a harder sell than the last time I asked that same question in 2018. The switch from larger phones to this smaller device was more of an adjustment before. The hardware is still amazing. It still holds up. The storage capacities on these phones, not great. There were a lot of people out there who wanted a smaller design when these phones were released. But I don't know if people want this small a phone anymore. It's a 4-inch screen, it's a 5-inch phone, it's just not very big at all. Even the iPhone 8 body of the new SE feels small to some. So, I don't know. It's a fun phone to use. The design is still iconic, and surprisingly, the phone is very capable. It's running iOS 14 smoothly. It could be a good performer for somebody who really wanted this kind of shape and size and design. But smartphones have come a long way since 2016, and even the operating system is now clearly designed for a larger phone. Steve Jobs, pour one out for the small phone that Steve Jobs loved. But I've had a good time playing around with this. As much as I like it for the reasons that I've mentioned. I don't think I could use it as my everyday phone now, and I don't think I could recommend it to anyone but the most stubborn of people who want this design or this size. With the new iPhone SE available, I mean, it's so reasonably priced, and there's so many other iPhone models available at really reasonable prices on the used market, especially if you check out on Amazon Renewed and that kind of place where you get a 90-day guarantee. It doesn't take the place of this phone in my heart, but it does take it out of my pocket. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Could you use a 4-inch screen, 5-inch phone in 2020? Do you like this design? Do you wish that the iPhone still had this design? Do you wish that the new iPhones coming out in a couple of months will have something similar to this design, at least harkening back to it? Let me know down in the comments below. We'll have a boisterous discussion. Otherwise, like, subscribe, bell, notify for more videos like this, rehashing older phones and other type tech stuff. Thanks so much for being here. My name is Jason, sometimes known as the JTL. This is Painfully Honest Tech. Tech's so honest, it hurts. Until the next time, I'm out.